Welcome everybody back to another episode of Investors Gallery. And thank everyone on YouTube and the 15 or 20 different podcast outlets that we have going. We really appreciate you. Now we're starting to stream internationally, which is really cool as well. So for the people who are new, this platform was built for individuals who do not typically have access to investors or high net worth individuals or very specialized individuals. Like we had a gentleman on that does cost segregation. So we wanted to be able to provide an outlet and communication with these individuals, like this amazing young man that I have here, Trevor, to be able to communicate with them, talk to them live, ask them questions live, and be able to get live feedback. Also, here we are in the office that I built. It's called Investors Gallery because I built this office, and I also built the art gallery that's on the other side of the room. And one day I'll finish it. It's 95% finished, but I haven't finished out the rest of it. So welcome everybody to Investors Gallery. I have an amazing gentleman. And I don't know if you've heard this, Trevor, but an amazing marketer. He's very consistent, which is extremely important in our space, but I'll let him go into that as well. So Trevor, introduce yourself. Let us know what you do, how you got into it, and somewhere in there, let us know what K stands for.
Okay. All right. We'll start out with the K. So my legal name is Keith, but I'm a junior, and I've never been called Keith. And when I turned 16, I bought a car. And I had savings bonds that said Keith, some that said Trevor, some that said Keith Trevor. And I worked for a guy that used his first initial and thought, that's it, I'm going to be K Trevor. So, but my legal name is Keith, but I do go by Trevor. I'm originally from Canada, spent most of my life in the attractions and entertainment business. So started working for Ripley's Believe It or Not at the age of 13 and did that for 5 years through high school, then worked for Guinness World of Records for 18 years and actually managed the rights for Guinness in North America. So I ran another location that the company owned in New York City in the Empire State Building, opened a franchise location out in Hollywood and Los Angeles. And then I started a consulting company helping companies open up visitor attractions. Eventually moved to Orlando to open a Guinness. The deal fell through. So strangely enough, I ended up opening a year-round haunted house. It was scary business. Unfortunately, we didn't make that much money, but I learned a lot. And then I got recruited by iFly Indoor Skydiving. And I spent over 20 years with iFly. Interestingly enough, at our very first team meeting, the original owner gave everybody a copy of Rich Dad, Poor Dad and said, you need to figure out how to make passive investing. But instead, I just focused on my career and I did everything. And then eventually we got bought out by a private equity company. And so it gave me some liquidity that I had no excuse to not start looking into passively investing in real estate. So I've been very active in the passive investing so far. I'm a limited partner in investing in 20 different syndications. And now I'm switching to the general partner side, which is the person that arranges the syndication. And I'm on my second deal right now. So I'm going to be switching over to active, and then eventually I'll switch back to passive once I reach a certain level that I don't want to do the active side anymore because it's a lot of work still.
You have activated buttons that don't normally get activated with me. I'm not a serialpreneur, but I was born into a family of entrepreneurs. So when you said you transitioned into doing your own consulting, that gets me excited. So even though this is not yet multifamily related, I have questions. So how? So you knew the business because you've been in the business
so
for a long time.
I knew the business. I started at the age of 13, right? So I literally started sweeping the floors and handing out marketing materials, and I learned everything right from the bottom up. And eventually, I started just a young kid summer job, and then worked my way all the way up to where I was running a pretty successful business. And I got to the consulting purely by networking and bringing values to others. So the first big contract I got, I was So in theory, managing the rights for Guinness was a consulting agreement. I worked for a franchise location and got their permission on the side to manage the rights for Guinness for North America and go into the Empire State Building, helped open the Hollywood, the Wax Museum of Guinness in Hollywood. And then I actually helped them open a Hollywood Wax Museum in Branson, Missouri. So I did everything they needed to do. And it was something that was a skill set that, and it was just in my blood to be an entrepreneur, right? I always wanted to learn and do things. And just by putting myself out there and learning, then offering how to help somebody, that's what sort of built in the career.
Okay. So that turns out to be even more significant than I thought. So the reason why I wanted to dig into you transferring from, let's say, a W-2 to a W-9, you went from working for someone in a specific industry to technically I'm going to officially do this on my own, even though you were it was contract work and it was kind of,
Yeah,
but it was more
in theory, I was doing both simultaneously. I was very fortunate because I was really good at what I did. I said, listen, if you don't let me do both, I'm going to move on because I got bigger things to do. They were quite happy with what I was doing. And they said, hey, as long as you can continue to do this and it doesn't affect, and I worked very hard to make sure it didn't affect. I worked very hard to make sure that I still gave them everything that that company needed. And, it was a lot of work, but in turn, it helped me to be able to develop myself. And to be honest, their creativity in allowing me to do it, I learned things and other experiences that I brought back to my day job and made that place better and made it more money. So it was always, and a big portion of my compensation, almost 50%, was incentive based anyways. So our goals were all very much aligned. So even though it was a job, it was a very entrepreneurial job, right? So I just got a profit of what we called EBITDA, which basically it's the earnings before depreciation, taxes, and interest. And I got a percentage of that. And, so our interests were very aligned, even though, and so they were entrepreneurs as well and allowed me to be one.
That's
amazing. And it didn't start that way. It grew into that because, again, I worked hard.
And so what I find significant about that for those who are watching, listening, or will be watching or listening is, Trevor, as you know, the way that we're successful in multifamily, and I'm laughing on the inside because my last episode was probably the first time that I mentioned my company, which is Dimensional Capital Partners. And obviously we do multifamily syndications and developments. But the way we're successful is we add value to others and we network. Mm-hmm. The way you were able to transition from working as an employee to an entrepreneur was you added value and you networked. Yeah, and that's what I wanted to dig into because I've been in a position, and I know many people are in a position where they have an amazing story, and I beat this every episode, but they never really explain. You'll hear something similar like, I lived in Arkansas and I had no money, so I moved to Texas. And most people are like, oh, wow, that's a great story. And I'm like, but you didn't have any money in Arkansas. So how did you move to Texas? Because you didn't have money. And sometimes I didn't have money just means, I didn't have a lot of money, but I've been poor. I've been homeless. I've been broke. And I've also, had a lot of success in my life. So when I hear that I was really broke or whatever, I think $0 in the account. And that's one of the reasons why I dig a little bit. So to expound on that, to shed light on, you were once an employee and this is how you moved. I think a lot of people miss that. And I hope it doesn't bother you. I'll do that a lot because I want to pull those nuggets out from the conversation. So you were an employee, you moved to entrepreneurship, but this is how you were able to be successful. So that gold nugget is you networked and you were already in the business. So you were a networker while you were an employee and you added value to others. So then it kind of, when it was your turn, they had no problem adding value to you. I think it is How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Influence People, Dale Carnegie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
how
and
to,
the
yeah,
interesting thing is when I started it, I actually started adding value without compensation. I knew these people, I became friends with these people, and I started adding value without compensation. I started just, hey, do you need any help? Can I help you out here? And then all of a sudden they saw my value and they said, well, we want more of you. And I said, well, to get more of me, we have to switch our arrangement from
right.
me just helping you to some sort of consulting. Basically, it was always a consulting agreement.
Mhm.
And I never did any agreements that had anything other than like they could just say goodbye if it wasn't working out right.
Mm,
I wanted it to be like, I wanted them to want me to be there.
right.
And, and it always was goal driven and it was always very much success reward. In other words, if I made them successful, there was an upside and opportunity for me as well. So it made it easy for them to start because I would always base it that about half of my compensation was always based on success. So a lot of people are afraid to get people or bring people in to do things because you spend all this money and you get nowhere, right? How many people have hired a web developer to mess up your website, right? And it just
Mhm.
happens all the time. But if you could find somebody who said, listen, I got a skill set, let me help. And when your website starts generating money, all I want is a little bit of the money till I reach this level. Wow, what a better opportunity, right? What a way to add value to somebody with some sort of deferred compensation that creates this win-win environment, right? It's very important to create that win-win environment. And a lot of consulting isn't done that way, right? A lot of consulting is done very much like, this is what you paid for, this is what you get, this is
Yeah.
all I'm going to give you. And that's the difference between, I guess, entrepreneurial and consulting.
So I want to go forward but backwards because typically my next question or my first set of questions is, okay, now how did you get into multifamily? But I want to ask you this question before I forget. How do you use the win-win mentality and the add value mentality in the multifamily space?
Yeah, so definitely. So the win-win mentality is, so I'm going to buy an apartment complex that needs to get made better. So I'm going to make it a better place for the residents to live. I'm going to make it a better place for the team members that run the apartment complex, a better place to work. And what happens with that is when people invest money doing that, they now get good returns on their investments and they get to go do their why. So it's kind of a complementary accelerating thing, right? So give people a better place to live, give people a better place to work. That's going to result in better returns for investors, which again creates more investors, more deals, more opportunities. And so everybody gets something, right? Like, so this person gets a nicer, safer place to live. Everybody wants a nice place to work, right? Property management is tough business. And so you want to create this environment where, they're trying to create a community. And then all of that makes the investors successful because, people are getting good rewards. And so you have good profits. And then the investors can use that for whatever they need for their, whatever I'm going to call it their why, right? So their why could be, I just want to go lay on the beach and retire. Their why could be, I want to put my kid in college. Their why could be, I want to get myself out of a job and be able to be, everybody's why is different. And the beauty of it is everybody can get it.
How, okay, so let's now go to first questions, which are normally the first questions. So you're in the, let's call it the entertainment space.
Yeah.
How did you, well, besides the book, Robert's book, I say Robert, like I know Robert,
Yeah.
we're pals.
Yeah.
How from the entertainment space in conjunction with that book, did you translate that into multifamily? What provoked you for multifamily?
Yeah, so I was always interested in real estate, but I didn't quite understand the path to get there. Just like everyone else, I was afraid of toilets, tenants, and trash, and I just didn't want to get there. And so it really intimidated me. And then several of the people that I did business with, and with iFly, by the way, I opened 46 of our 80 locations. So I was very much into like real estate selection and doing things and helping and, getting things permitted and done. So there was a lot of real estate involved in what I did and helping pick locations. So I was always fascinated with real estate, but I just didn't quite understand how to get there. And then one of my closest friends, actually, my partner in the haunted house that I opened, he was very successful in the retail space. So I actually spent a lot of energy and time with him, and we opened up a store together. And I started being quite fascinated with the retail space. And then all of a sudden, it dawned on me when I started getting educated, okay, how much more powerful multifamily was than all other commercial classes. It is easier to get money for. It's easier to get better financing terms. It has more tax benefits than anything. I mean, you start adding up all of the things that you got, and it was like this, I never thought of all this. Because originally, again, I spent like a year trying to get into a mentor program to buy offices and or retail. And I just never quite got it to gel. I still like that space and I still want to do some. And I actually still have some passive investments in that space. And then all of a sudden I just saw the power of multifamily. And then all of a sudden, what I talked about earlier, my whys, all of a sudden, like I couldn't get excited making, I mean, yes, I knew you could live your dream if you opened up your karate store in my retail strip center and you would be able to, but I was only impacting few people. And when I started to see the power of multifamily, that I can have 100 apartments and in fact 100 families and make things better for them, and then maybe 4 or 5 team members in the thing, and then multiple investors, I started kind of seeing, wow, this is something that suits my personality. It also suits my skill set because I love managing small businesses. That's what I did for my whole life. I love incremental improvements. I did that for my whole life. So many things started to gel, and it was just like this big light bulb came on. And to be honest, I'm still learning. I spend like insatiable amounts of time trying to get educated about what I'm learning and still learning. It's a very vast area. But I just, and to be honest, I never thought I'd get this passionate. I just never, and that's what entrepreneurship really is, right? Entrepreneurship is doing what you love to do, whether you got paid for it or not. And if you're really good at it and you find the right thing to do, you're always going to get paid for it, right? But in theory, I used to say, man, I loved opening iFly locations. Don't ever tell the boss this. I'd come to work for free because this was such a cool job. Now I've got this in the multifamily space. That, wow, this is really exciting. And that's how you can kind of ignite, right? Because if it's just if it's just accounting and numbers and buildings, and it's not people, I'm not interested. And there's a little bit that's, even though I still like retail and there's still a purpose for it, right? And there's still good value in it. That's just why I got more drawn into multifamily.
Who presented you your first LP deal, and how did you find it?
So I joined a local Texas mentoring program, and they presented the deals, and I invested in the deals. I've learned a lot since then. Strangely enough, my first 2 passive investments only gave me my capital back. I didn't even make any money. But it didn't discourage me because I saw the mistakes they made and how I could do different things differently. And, so sometimes mistakes are bigger learning opportunities than successes are. In fact, they always are. It wasn't a mistake, but it was just, I really wanted to analyze it. And I wanted to talk about it more than they wanted to talk about it. So
yeah, of course.
they stopped talking to me. I just said, man, I want to learn. I'm not here to like Monday morning quarterback you. Let me learn why we weren't successful so that I don't repeat that mistake. Like, let me at least get that earning out of not making any money on my money. Now, since then, I've had deals and they're doing much better, and I've gotten better at picking them. And, and that comes with time and comes with education, and it comes with finding good people that want to do good things. And when you give them your money, they're going to do the things that I'm not the only guy doing what I've talked about, right? There's a lot of people doing what I talked about. You just need to find them. You need to get familiar with them. And so.
If you could go back with, I say with the knowledge, but that's not really fair. But if you can go back and start over again, would you still go back as an LP, or would you try to do
Oh,
it?
definitely go back as an LP. And also, if I could go back, man, if I had started real estate in my 20s, not in my 50s, my life would be significantly different. Significantly.
Yeah.
You know, they always say, when's the best time to buy real estate? Yesterday. And the
Yes.
second best time is today. So my biggest thing was, you know, I knew about it, I liked it, I saw the value of it, but instead, you know, I did what everybody does, right? I got on the hamster wheel and I spun around in circles. And, you know, I always like these funny jokes, right? You know, my boss, he brought a Ferrari to work, right? And everybody went, wow, that's a nice car. And he goes, yeah, if you work hard, next year I'll get another one.
Right.
But it's true, right? He went and bought a Ferrari, and hey, if you keep working hard next year, I'm going to buy another one for my wife. Or, you know, he never said that, but I saw a cartoon. It was just, it's very much so, right? That you know, you need to take care of yourself.
Yes.
Now, don't get me wrong. People need jobs. They need to get, and they need to do what they like to do. And going active on real estate investing is definitely not for everybody. And passive, every deal needs passive investors.
Yes.
And you can still do very well as a passive investor. You can still earn all kinds of good returns. And you know, and that's also just a great thing about it.
Yeah. So 20 deals previously as an LP. For those listening, LP is limited partner, GP is general partner. General partner means you are equity owner, and LP means you are passive, not passive owners, passive income, but you are an investor in it, but you do not have, you're basically a silent partner. You just don't have any say so in it.
I got a great way to describe that.
Go ahead.
So this is it. So the active people are, so the people that do the deal are like the airline. Okay, so there's an airplane, that's the apartment complex. There's a pilot, that's the GP. There's people that fix the plane, that's the property management company. There's people on the plane, the stewards and the stewardesses that take care of the customers and make sure everything's good. So the passive investor buys a ticket. So they buy a portion of the deal. They get on the airplane. They're going to their destination. Sometimes there's a little turbulence, but hopefully you got a great crew and they take care of it, right? If a deal's got some stuff going on.
Yeah.
And you can choose what you're going to do on your airplane ride. You can work, you can read a book, you can sleep, you can talk to your family, you can do whatever you want to do. And the airplane ride takes a certain amount of time, just like an investment takes a certain amount of time. And when you get to your destination, that's when the deal is over and you know you're going to reap the rewards. And that's a very simple way to look at it. So your only responsibility is to buy a ticket to get on this ride. And then you leave everything. So you do not want me flying your airplane. Okay, you do not want, because it's not my skill set. But on an apartment complex, I've got certain skill sets that are very applicable to what we're going to do. So you got to make sure. So when I started out, man, I shouldn't have been a pilot. I had to go on the plane and I had to learn. Now, luckily, I learned, and pilots let me come and sit in the co-pilot seat. And I started to learn some stuff, and maintenance let me watch how they changed the tire or build whatever it was. And I learned all these things by connecting with people that were doing them. And that helped me get to my next level. But as a passive investor, you're basically buying a ticket for a ride like on an airplane. And that is the easiest way for you to go, oh, I get it now.
Is that licensed and registered? Because I'm gonna use that if it's not.
It's not. I stole it from somebody else,
Okay.
one of the investors actually, who wrote, anybody interested in passive investing should always read James Kamasami's book, Passive Investing. And he used that description in that book. And I always recommend anybody starting out and looking to passively invest. It is the most kind of comprehensive look at a very high level of what you should consider.
And how you're able to break that down into the property management and the operators and the LP and GP.
Yeah, he doesn't go into the detail. I expounded those, so I'll take the credit.
And the LP sit in the back.
Yeah.
And you get to the destination at the same time. And if the GPs mess up, everybody dies.
Let's hope that doesn't happen.
It's a very accurate, Analogy. So yeah, I will definitely be using that, but I'm gonna give you the credit when I say it. So out of the 20 passive investments as an LP, what caused you to now switch over to be an active investor?
So the biggest thing that happened was I got let go during COVID, and I still needed to do something, and it was always my ultimate goal, right? I wanted to start learning, but I had, in theory, I still wanted to work for a few more years, get closer to 65. And I was still planning to do some active deals, but I think that to be really good at being an active sponsor, you have to have the freedom. I don't want to invest in a deal from somebody who can't answer the property manager's phone call Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, because they're at work. Yep. Right. And so I believed, okay, if I'm going to get really serious about this and be a lead sponsor on a deal, it needs to be my full-time job. And so I said, listen, I got let go during COVID, so I'm going to switch. I'm going to do this. And my ultimate goal is to switch. And then what I want to do is, so I'm going to switch. So people took me under their wing, right, and helped me along. And so my goal is to reciprocate that once I reach a certain level and help be a lead sponsor and help other people get on deals. And then my ultimate goal is not to be as active, but to be like a mentor to people. They need people to sign on bank loans and have all the different things, and let somebody else learn and do the work while I help manage them and mentor them. And then, to be honest, then I'm going to take it all out and put it into land. So I'm going to be Starbucks and Walgreens and CVS's landlord. Then I'm going to die, and my kids are going to inherit it at the stepped up value without taxes. Talk about, like, they always say that two things you can't escape are death and taxes. It's not true. If you play your cards right in real estate, you can die and beat the taxes when you give it to your heirs. A lot of people don't know that. So it sounds morbid, right? But that's my legacy that I'm leaving for my family, right? They don't want to run the businesses. They don't want to do the things. And just getting checks from a triple net tenant, which is a retail term. Triple net tenant means they take care of everything to do with the building, and they just pay you the right to sit on your dirt. And so it's very unlaboring. You don't make as much money, but it's the creme de la creme of steady income. Yeah. And again, once I'm 90, hopefully I live to 90 before I give it to my kids, then, by then I won't want to be doing all that extra work. And then they'll get it from that way. So I'm going to ramp up inactive quite a bit, ramp back down, go 100% passive. I also have a thing on my vision board that I'm 3 apartment complexes that I'm going to be the majority general partner owner of them, and they'd be a quality that I would live in, and they'll be in states that I want to live in. And my goal is I'll be that crazy old guy that wanders around talking to the guys, and my goal is nobody will know that I actually own the place, but I want to be able to go there and make sure that my tenants are getting, the kind of quality care that I would like to see them get. And then I got another epiphany. Maybe I need to get an old folks home too. So senior assisted living is the next big boom for real estate.
Yes, it is.
I haven't got into it yet, but it's the next big boom, right? We're all getting old, and we're all living way longer than we were used to live. And so now we're going to need places that can take care of us, because the normal working family with mom and dad both working, they can't bring in grandma and grandpa and take care of them like they could back at, when my parents were, doing it. There was, my in-laws, that their mother lived with them till she passed away.
Yep, the dynamics have definitely changed. It sounds like you've thought about this for a minute or two.
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Okay, so you're in active now. How difficult was it to raise? I was trying to figure out how to phrase the question, but being an LP, you give money. You find a deal, you find an operator or a team who seems like they know what they're doing, but now you're switching over to active. How difficult was it to raise money on your first deal?
Very hard. very hard. And part of it was I didn't plan it right, right? And I came from an environment where there were not a lot of high net worth people. So I wasn't like I worked at Dell and I was working with a lot of people that were making a couple $100,000 a year, and I was in the, executive management team. I worked for iFly Indoor Skydiving, and those were guys that had a second job to stay alive and pay all the bills, and so it was a little bit different. So I didn't spend the time sort of recruiting these people. I just didn't kind of put the things together. And then I did a lot of energy out there where I attracted people. The problem was I didn't attract investors. I attract people that were doing the same thing as me. So they're all saying, well, listen, Trevor, I'm saving my money for my deal. And just like now when people say, will you passively invest in my deal? I said, I'm saving my money for my deal, because every general partner should put money in their own deals, right? Never invest in a deal that the general partner doesn't have more than their fees that are coming to them in the deal, more than. You want to make sure that that's the case. But so it's just, it's the way it is though.
How much was your first raise?
So my first raise, I was supposed to raise 500,000 and I raised 280.
280. Okay. I have never not heard the first rate, no matter what it is, was not insanely difficult.
Yeah.
My partner tells me about, I'm not going to say their names because they're huge now, but my partner always tells me about a friend of ours deal. I think their first building was 13 units or 18 units or something like that. And now they have thousands of units, and every deal seems like it was pulling teeth, and I think that's kind of the rite of passage. Unfortunately,
it definitely is, and it's definitely a skill set, and it also builds as you build credibility, right? I mean, you think about it, right? You have worked so hard to get 50,000 after tax dollars. I mean, you've worked for years to get that kind of money, and then to turn around and give it to somebody for something you still don't quite understand. It's a big ask, right? Now, once you understand it, it's a little easier to do it. And once you see the power of successful investments where the money comes back to you and you start getting cash flow, and then they go full cycle, because a lot of the deals, most of the money's made at the end of the cycle. There's still cash flow and different things, but a lot of deals are like that. So it's very challenging.
It is very challenging. How many people are on your current GP team?
So on the current deal, we have more than we needed, and there was a bit of method to the madness. So there's 7 of us on it, which is a little more than we wanted.
And we're normal.
And normal. So there was 3 of us that did the deal, and then I'd met 2 gentlemen that I really wanted on my deal. So we basically said, listen, we're going to give them a small role. They're super guys. They're going to be my future big time partners. But they just switching from single family to multifamily. So we brought them in, and it was sort of what I wanted to call my first mentoring students, almost like, we're going to bring you in. You're going to see everything. You're going to help with everything. You're going to help me with what I'm doing on the deal. And then we did bring in, because we knew we didn't have the capital raising, we did bring in 2 guys that could raise money, because we knew we needed 2 guys that could raise money. And they have, and they've made our deal successful. And and we may not, we're hoping 7's a lot, so we'd like to get it a little more manageable. But as a core team, we're still okay. Because again, I'd rather be part of a rock star team and have the capability to do many more deals, right? Because we've got enough bandwidth within the group to do a lot more deals.
Yeah. And it's difficult to find a team. It's difficult to find people, first of all, with a skill set, and especially if you're coming from a non-real estate or non-technical, background or industry, to find someone who, hey, I need an underwriter, and be able to meet or communicate with an underwriter until or unless you're going to the meetups or the conferences. What is your position on your team? What is your role?
So asset manager. asset manager, because
Okay.
that's my skill set. I mean, I love running small businesses. I love incremental improvements. I live an hour and 10 minutes from the property. So that's my role on the team.
Awesome. And yeah, you've probably have a lot of experience with that from iFly, right?
That's correct. And I actually volunteered as an LP on a deal that was struggling for 10 months. I was volunteer asset manager. And that turned into, it's quite an interesting story. It was a very struggling asset. It was my first deal I made no money on. I actually helped out a current asset manager and found out a bunch of things that weren't correct on what he was reporting back up. They removed him. Then they decided they were going to remove the property manager and I would self-manage. So here I am, brand new, self-managing 176 door deep value add. And then COVID happens and all kinds of things happened. And we ran out of money for CAPA. It was this snowballing thing that all kind of, but I could never have paid for that education. You can't get that, right? I mean, I call being thrown in the deep. I used to say they threw me in the deep end, and every once in a while, when I would ask for a life preserver, they would just throw another 25-pound weight at me. And say toughen up and figure it out. And so again, very stressful at the time and in the moment. But what I learned was like a lifetime of lessons in 10 months, really.
You basically were in the Marines of multifamily.
Yeah, and it was a tough deal. I mean, it was so tough. I had armed security for a while. Our plumber wouldn't come to the property because he got robbed. So I would sit at his truck so his truck didn't get broke into and his tools stolen. Literally, I would bring a lawn chair, sit under a tree, and watch his truck because I could still get Wi-Fi and work with my little hat on, because he was the best plumber in town at the best rate that knew our property. It was just bizarre, the things I had to do.
Wow.
Yeah, but again, when you do that, you start to get resourceful and you learn things. Now, I don't want to be sitting under a tree watching it. It's not my ultimate goal in life.
Right.
But what did I learn, right? I learned the things that sometimes you just got to do, right?
Yeah. That, man, you have no idea how many memories that brought back. So I've been doing carpentry and construction since I say 7. It was probably earlier than that, but I don't want to get my parents and my grandparents in trouble, which 7 is already still too young. But I remember growing up. So I learned construction and carpentry in Detroit because that's where my dad was living. And I remember we were walking the store, and we will literally walk in the store and walk back out, and half the tools will be gone. Now, mind you, it's Detroit. You should know better. A lot of the rumors are now true. They wasn't as true back then. They were just kind of, folklore. But yeah, that's a thing. And it's funny because here in Houston, and I'm sure in San Antonio, some areas are bad, but it's not the same. And I'll drive and see like new builds, and it's stacks of bricks outside. And I'm like, in Detroit, all of that will be good. So yeah, you gave me a nice little flashback to my childhood. We've bought a lot of rock rollers because of that. Stuck them in a truck. I've had a lot of memories from that. But another thing to kind of pivot from that is people see the result. I don't think they necessarily think about the time and the effort. They don't think about the 10 hours you spent behind the laptop trying to figure the numbers out, the 100, 200 deals that you had to go through to find 5 deals that penciled, to walk all 5 deals and either put a bid on 2 of them and lose a bid, or none of the 5 deals worked. So you had to go back to the next 100, 200 deals. And I don't think people really see that.
No, they have no idea. And education mentoring groups don't ever teach that. They just teach you how easy it is and what you do. And, and another thing they don't teach you is when you put, like, especially current, when we got a deal, you put hard money at risk. My first big GP deal, we lost $350,000 of earnest money at 6 months. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. It's going to take, mine was, I only had a smaller portion of that, but that's a big lesson in life. It's going to take a lot of acquisition fees to reverse that.
Right.
So again, a lot of people, oh, I don't understand why they take an acquisition fee or an asset management fee. You're not getting, if you're getting rich on those, shame on
Yep.
you.
Yep.
They are what I'm going to call the cost and rewards of business. You definitely should be making some money on them and doing things, but they're supporting the infrastructure for you to go take the risk, right? It's like the
Right.
airline buying the airplane and paying for the insurance and doing all the
Right.
things. They're at risk.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I teach to my students is the fun part about the acquisition fee, but why it's almost necessary. And the thing is, you have to start from zero. I haven't met anybody in this industry who doesn't start from zero. So as you're starting from zero, that acquisition fee puts gas in your car to go visit the property, to go have phone calls, the conferences with the property management company, because you got to be able to survive until you make your exit. That's what the acquisition fee is for, is to make sure that the wheels are still turning and you still put, the oil, the machine, and the oil is being put in the machine so it can run. So then you can, drive to the target and to the goal.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's pivotal. So now you're on your second acquisition. You talked a little bit about retail. Actually, let's pivot from there and I'll get back to the retail. We won't hold you to it, but what is your predictions or thoughts about what the economy is going to do, and far as like cap rates and prices that you're seeing on multifamily now?
Yeah. So again, if you think about it, we were in such a period of historic low interest rates. It was abnormal.
Yes.
So in theory, even though this feels abnormal, this is closer to normal. And a lot of people have just, we got spoiled, right? It was 3 to 4, 5 years of super low interest rates, tons of debt being poured into the projects in the community. And we've gone away from that closer to normal. Okay. So a lot of people are saying, oh, interest rates, everything's going to crash. It's not. This is kind of normal, right? For a long time, people underwrote deals and it was, now it's, inflation is a bit scary. It's helped multifamily, but if they don't get it somewhat under control, it's going to hurt the people that are living there, and all the A's are going to move to B's and B's move, everybody's going to have to downgrade because they can't afford to live there. Right. And hopefully that, doesn't happen to where Americans can't find places they can afford to live in that at least have some level of quality and safety for their families. But strong operators that have experience with, operating and grinding things out. I don't want to sort of toot my own home, but I grounded myself out for 10 months on a deal, right? Keeping it afloat, keeping it alive, filling apartments, trying to get things done on a shoestring budget. We just came out of the I'm going to call it the roaring 20s, the roaring early 20s, where, you didn't have to do much and you could make money. And people were making more money. So we're going to go back to where real estate investment is still the best investment. It's just not insane, right? The last few years have been insane where you're getting debt so reasonable.
Right.
And I think you got to be careful where. Okay. So places that are in economic struggles, okay, are going to be tough to do good deals in, right? Just because they're not seen, the great state of Texas is on fire. Arizona's on fire. Florida's on fire. The Carolinas are on fire. Who's not on fire?
Everybody up north.
Non-pro business states, non-pro landlord states, high tax states, they're not on fire. People are exiting. And so hopefully people understand that for everybody to do well on those things, you need to be in places that are encouraging investment in people's homes, right? There's a housing crisis and a shortage, And that's why there's tax incentives on housing and do things. And I still think, for Texas, man, there's people moving here, like we're way behind. So I feel very secure in the markets I'm investing that we're not going to not see any effect, right? We're just not going to be in the crazy roaring 20s again, but we're going to be okay. But I would be very careful investing in, some more struggling areas, areas where you're seeing people move out of, because it's just not sustainable, right? You should only invest in markets where the population is growing and the income base is growing along with the population base. In other words, better jobs are coming, right? So population went up 5% and people's income went up 5%. Those two things line up, they look pretty good.
Yep. I'm getting so many deals from the last 3 months consistently from New York, Virginia, Ohio, Kentucky, Oklahoma. And Oklahoma, I don't think is as bad as the rest of them. I have to look at the numbers. And I'm seeing people have a lot of interest. I'm not going to say if they're doing deals or not, but I'm seeing so much interest from my peers into all of these states. And I mean, hopefully it's a good deal. And hopefully it had to pencil some kind of way because, senior debt, took an interest and, started moving forward on it or closed on it. But that scares me. The fund that we're launching, hopefully probably within the next month or two, our real estate investment fund, we're focusing Texas, Florida, North, South Carolina, and Georgia, because those are the markets that, can bear the significant, or we're looking for significant growth, or at least steady growth, not stagnant or, reversing. Let me see.
Yeah, and in markets like Oklahoma, they're great markets and they're decent cash flow markets. They're just not as strong appreciation markets.
Yep. Man, that deal was so nice, but I was like, I don't think I want to. One of the few times a broker called me multiple times on a deal. I'm like, how the shoes are switching feet. The broker's calling me 6 times to see if I'm still interested in the deal. All right. So do you have, ask you 1 or 2 more questions, and then I want to open it up to any questions from our audience. Actually, I did want to ask you this earlier. It's kind of the same question anyway. Going from a significant amount of experience in your passive investing, what is something that you learned, but as you learned it doing active investing, as a GP, you would have never thought this would have been a thing or it operated in such a manner?
So I think that the most important thing is I'm very happy on deals where there's a lot of transparency from the GP team down to the LP team. I want to know, I call it how the sausage is made. A lot of people just want to eat the sausage. They want to see how the sausage is made. And so when I was an LP in deals that disclosed things and told you things, and we're not had personal conversations about you. So now as a GP, that's a very important thing for me, that we have this transparency and a high level of communication with our investors. And we don't only tell them the rosy things, right? We tell them, hey, listen, man, we've really struggled. We've got some serious delinquency. This is what we've done about it. Here's how we're transitioning out about it. Because that gives me more confidence in them than less. A lot of people think, oh, if you can see my slip, it's not gonna, no, you need to be transparent.
That's the number one response that I've gotten with anything kind of similar to that question. And I think, I truly believe you can have a failing deal, but if you have amazing communication, they'll reinvest with you. Because yes, you found that deal. Yes, you thought that deal was good enough. But I think the logical person will understand you can't really control the economics that push the metrics in your deal. You can't control whether job growth went up or went down because you bought this apartment. Now it was your fault you bought the apartment, but disclosing, hey, rents are the people that are renting this month is down. We're not seeing an increase or a steady turnover of apartments. I think the investors understanding that and hearing maybe the bad news, they'll understand, hey, I'm probably not getting a distribution this quarter, or I might not make any money or see anything until the exit. So yeah, that is, I've heard that pretty much every episode that I've asked a question.
And I've also learned the power of a preferred position. In other words, you get your money first, right? So I like a deal where, the bank gets their money first, the investors get their money second, and the GP team gets their money third. I want them to pay me first. Doesn't have to be all the money, right? So it can be a 6, 7, 8% prep position, but I want to see my money first. I want you to work really hard to get your money. And I don't mind, a lot of people don't like them, but I don't mind a waterfall at the end too, saying, hey, if we surpass a certain level, us as GPs are going to get rewarded with a little more. To me, that aligns the interest. I'm in a deal that when they double my money, it goes to a 50-50 split. I'm rooting for them to double my money. I'm not rooting for them saying, oh, I hope it never gets to double my money. Think about that, right? Double my money as fast as you can, baby, and get to that 50-50 split.
Yeah.
I'm a happy camper.
Yeah, I agree 100%. All right. Everybody is off of mute. Before I see if anybody has questions, Trevor, do you have a gold nugget or gold nuggets that you want to share with the audience now and the audience that will be listening in the future?
Yeah, so my gold nugget is always figure out what you can do for somebody else, not what they can do for you. Be a giver. There's a great book called The Go Giver written by Bob Burke. It's an amazing book. And it talks about if you give people, and even Jim Rohn said it, right? If you give people what they want, you'll get what you want.
Right.
And it's very true.
Right. I think I got that from, was it still How to Win Friends and Influence People?
Yeah, no, it's Jim Rohn and his, I'm not sure which book it's in, but
okay.
Yeah, that's Dale Carnegie, the other one.
Okay. Cool. I appreciate that. All right. Now I will open it up. So we're not keeping Trevor too long. I try to keep the episodes hour-ish. Does anybody have questions? And all the people, my amazing returning podcaster people, I love you guys and I appreciate you coming back. Who has questions or comments?
Zig Ziglar, somebody wrote, so Jay wrote it in the Q&A, biblical origin. Yeah, it's awesome. She also wrote earlier, and I tried to answer her, that she's doing senior assisted living in resort settings. So maybe I'm moving into her place because I like resorts,
That's not out of the realm of possibility with some of the contacts we're making. We're presenting this opportunity and they're thinking of it for themselves as well. It's funny. And that means we're on the right track. So,
well, hey, who doesn't want to put mom in the same place you'd want to be?
Right? I agree. We're always thinking of expanding that network.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was brokenhearted when I couldn't put my mom in it was government regulated and they just said, this is where she's got to go. And it broke my heart. Up in Canada, it's not quite the same as the land of the free here in America. And, I tried to make the best of it by, but man, it's, yeah.
Any other questions, comments, compliments?
It's funny. I was just on a call before this one and it came up here again. That first investor or that first breakthrough, even though you think they're all in the beginning, something always happens because no one wants to be first. A mentor said, no one wants to be first and no one wants to be last because they see it's a great opportunity, but nobody wants to be first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that first deal is,
it's tough.
Trevor, also, I wanted to say, I appreciate you sharing that you had a deal with a significant loss. Because nobody talks about the struggles and the issues that they have with their deals. Every deal is amazing. Every deal had a 22% IRR and so on and so forth. And you don't learn from success. you learn from your failures and your bad experiences, which gives you the results of success in the future. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that a lot.
And there is good news in that all the passive investors received 100% of their money back.
Wow.
You know,
Congratulations.
they were not at risk. And so I talk about that again, that's another valuable thing. Even though the deal went bad, it went gone, on this particular deal, they all got their money back. Now, unfortunately, we tied it up for a few months, hoping to close. But and I'll be honest, almost all but two of my investors on that deal are in my current deal.
Wow.
You know, you know, they were, you know, they felt worse for me than I did for myself. Even though I felt pretty
Wow.
bad for myself.
Yeah. And two things. So one, probably because you communicated very effectively, very well. And two, they invested wisely. So it was money that they could afford to invest. They could technically afford to lose it. As I think GP should look at it as when they invest, knowing that it's not their last, we should treat it like it's their last or like it's mom's money. So yeah, I can see you doing a very good job with that. Anybody have any questions or comments before we let Trevor go?
Thanks for having me, and thanks to those that listened in, support us.
Angel, I'm so excited for, man, it's in 2 days. Angel's coming to Houston to speak at our investor meetup. Man,
I know.
I'm
I'm sad I can't go. I'm at the old Capitol event up in Dallas.
Well, and I had the date down wrong. I thought I was going to be able to go to Houston on Wednesday, do the thing, like speak at the event Thursday, and then I was thinking it was Friday, Saturday,
Mhm.
but it's somebody else's thing is Friday, Saturday, and I can't remember whose it is at this point. Not that it doesn't really matter. I don't think I can squeeze it all in. So
Okay, well, I think that is it. So thank you, Trevor, for being on.
My
And
pleasure.
I will get this out to you. Give me a couple days. I might be able to have it out to you tomorrow. But yeah, let me know. And thank you again for being on the podcast.
No, my pleasure. I love talking about and helping people learn about passive investing. It's one of my passions.
Thank you. All right, see everybody later.
Thank you. See you.
bye.
All right, bye.